women should be encouraged, women should be supported, and the support of the women also to be taken. And so I think they are moving on a proper path.
The man has a ego, saying that I'm really stronger than a lady.
Whether you're a woman or you're a man, you are capable of doing it all. It's how you do it, how you pursue.
Ladies or girls can do better because architecture is somewhere related to emotions and sensitivity.
Yeah, I would come back to this. I mean, this is good. It looks here to others.
I don't know what everybody realized. I always consider that the architecture profession is the oldest profession in the world. From the day men is actually could be integral. Of course, those days we will call master dudes. Architect, we are engineers, we are everything. Okay. And subsequently things evolve. Okay, new construction methods and what else. If you look to the studies, okay, I studied primary school in 1960s or something. Okay, at that time in Malaysia, a lot of people, you say, if you have to become architect, architect is to design house. That's it, nothing else. Okay, and most of the profession that people go in at that point in time is engineering or medicine. Okay, and again, okay, because of technology, whether it's in education or whether it's in construction industry, it evolves. Okay, do you realize that a student to study architecture, okay, with a bachelor of architecture when they graduate, not necessarily becomes an architect? It's because the field is very wide. Okay, you become an academician, administrators, and a lot. But what spawned the whole industry is the education at times and the expectation. And because the diversifications of the role of work, okay, now you have what you call the technologies, building surveyors, and all of that. And QS for them too. I remembered when I studied, okay, we learn everything. So when we come up, okay, for a basic small project, we can do feasibility studies, can do estimations and all that. But these days, a young graduate, when you ask to do estimation, oh no, there's a QS work. That's not my work. If you do a pillar, that's not my work. That's IIA. Okay, what's wrong with all this? Okay, and of course with technology, those days is drawing board, T-squares, now is computers. Like what Julius had mentioned, those days, okay, we architects, we do our own perspective. Meanwhile, those perspectives have life. These days on computer, they're so it's so rigid. Any Tom, Dick, Harry, by process of water, can come out and it's in the showing no worries. Yes. I remember a commercial piece of for. What I'm afraid is one day, okay, somebody who do architecture, okay, when they come out, I just want to do design, that's it. Nothing else. Okay. Are we saying that later the education system architecture is actually fermented? If you are a designer, you just study design. Okay. If you are a contract master, you study that. But then you have to remember the word architect, I'm sure is worldwide. It's a protected word. It's a professional. You do design, you do everything. Okay. I would like to claim, okay, if I do the design and Rohana do the administration, okay, is was the one who do the certification, okay, at the end of the day, it's actually three. I cannot say that that's mine. He will also claim that you commit. So that's something I think with regards to whether it's education, the profession, you really need to know where we are thinking.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think because it's a vast field, right? So you need to have knowledge about each and everything because
Exactly.
when you're on site, you can't say that the structural engineer is going to give you the. I mean, obviously they know the technical part of it, but it's important as architects to at least be aware of what's there, whether it's in terms of design or work enjoying and everything. I think that is how you.
At the end of the day, are you going to blame the engineer for putting the pipe in the wrong place?
Yeah, that's the thing. When you're reviewing the choice, I think
Himself should know what is his bedding is going to be look like, how he is going to detailing of that building. So the even the columns and the other position, he has to give it to the engineer, saying that I want column here. Engineer will say, engineer want to have a column anywhere, but we should tell him where I want column and why I don't want column over here. So that architect's job. So architect has to be well knowledgeable, well studied, and well management has to be there.
I will just keep on saying this. I come back on this piece very interesting. Just okay, I correct. What? Yeah, I don't want to repeat what you said. Perfectly. All right, fine. Very blue. I very much agree with them. Now, but I believe that they say so up to omelette is eating it. Yeah. So the work, the design, the creation that artist does in the paper or the screen has to be considered. If he go back the time machine, I have never encountered any history where such a building has been designed and constructed by women. So the division of labor was such not only in our historical continent, but even in Western country, it was the same. Division of labor was of a similar type. Even the god of construction, Vishwakarma, is a man, right? But remember that coming to this time, our education doesn't personalize this architecture education is for girl, this architecture education for boy. There is the muches of the answer. So there's equal opportunity. The only problem is only yes. The only problem is yes. And as far as division of labor is concerned, girls and boys, it's not only in our case, every street. Now, sometimes when you hear the girl has gone to engineering profession, I also sometimes wonder, it's a hard profession, why they do it, but not architectures. So, now remember, at this time is the first architecture in Sri Lanka was a lady, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So it is happening like that. So because it doesn't distinguish between girl architect and boys architect. So there is a positive development. And whatever we talk about architecture education has been given us by the Western world. We didn't have that type of formal architecture education. Usually we go to like in Rabindranath Tagore's, what do you call it? Okay, your Shanti our system was like that, yeah. So there is a positive change. I completed my architecture education 60 years ago. 60 here. Even in those times, it was in Europe. There were more girls, can you imagine? And there are still more girls, and the situation is the same. So why the disparity is with this? Because of the legacy. Now let's think what the girls are doing now. There are many famous architects that can surpass the limit. Today, there was a presentation of Diana Mercana. He did this wonderful job in Jaipur. Yeah, marvel. There is nothing complicated, but everything is complicated. You see, a girl knows the comfort of children. You see, I talked about softness here, and there I talked about Jahadi, yeah, Queen of Court, and there was, and if you say, in Chicago, there was Art again with the tallest building by Lizzie Hopkins. Very beautiful buildings. And there are 2 or 3 buildings, which is a masterpiece. So the only things we have to fight here with are understanding, prehistory understanding, or our prejudice. Yeah. So the girls have proved that they can do it. So let's go ahead with that conviction, and then also is very, very challenging is now we are talking about the future of artificial profession. When this artificial intelligence will come, what will we do? So there is still more chances for girls to compete with us. And we have found that girls are very good in that. You know, two girls was very instrumental in sending mission to moon in America. One was black girl and there was white girl. Both of them mathematicians. Yeah. Because of them, the mission was success. So we must not underestimate girls. So it's only time up, like I said, I told that 60 years ago, the number of girls were more in my classroom than as than the boy. Yeah. So have patience. This is as my friends told that you have to be supported. You have to be supported. Every field, not only enough. So we have to change the society. Architecture talks about society. Architecture talks about culture. Architecture talks about history. Architecture talks about art. So that's why that now you are here as a lady architect conducting art interview with us. So this is a very good development. Otherwise, there used to be journalists interview architects, and they were very clear because they didn't understand architecture, and that the person very foolish person they used to ask. I had experience when in India, in Delhi also, you could yeah, journalists interview architects. The questions were very clear questions. Even this architects and my questions. So let's have patience. Let's support the girls, and it will change the society. Architects, we have a beautiful architecture creation.
Thank you, Prof.
As we always, agree, there's an increase of women architects, the population. But in the same time, we have also experienced a decline of selecting this profession as a career. So today, we have noted a lot of students choose other field than architecture. So that is, we have already experienced in my country. Then we found the reasons. Reason number one is the architecture education is very lengthy. You have to learn minimum 5 years. If you want to have 3 years plus 2 years, that is your first degree plus masters. You have to earn 2 years of experience minimum, the overall, to become a chartered architect or to become a qualified person in architecture. It takes minimum 7 years. It's very, very tough season, tough period. And also, we have found compared to the other courses, architecture course is very expensive. And also, but that is for parents. The parents are the people who spend money for their students, their kids. So that is one of the reasons. And also, we have found now, I think you mentioned that architecture is the oldest profession in the world. Yes, we all agree, right? So he mentioned about the master builder. So he did everything those days. Design part, detailing part, building part, thinking part, whatever the creativity, decision making, management, everything by one person. So with the time, our projects became very complex. So that is what the reason that we, right? So diversified the key profession to other professions, right? We have engineers, quantity surveyors, managers, everyone. So in the same time, we have noted today architects. So they deviate from their main role, that is the creative role. The practice of architecture is the main role of an architect. So they have deviated that profession, that particular focus, some have already identified teaching as their career. They are architects, but end of the day, they are teachers. They teach architecture. They teach management. Some people have chosen specification writing. They never design. They only write specs. They are the expert of writing specification for their projects. They don't design. Some other architects have chosen their career as project managers. They never design. They manage project. They coordinate with others. So as they mentioned, they basically have mastered other areas as well. So architect Vilat mentioned the designer should know how to position the columns and instruct the engineer, right? So this is my column grid. You go ahead. We must not leave engineer to dictate the column grid to architect, because end of the day, we are experiencing the end product, not the engineer's excellence. We all, as a society, any human being or living being experience what we have created as architects. That has to be understood. So architecture is not only for practice architecture nowadays. So it has some other areas, some other links also. Let me highlight very small thing. The architecture teaching. Architect Saifuddin mentioned about, those days. He recalled his memory as a student. I'm also like that. We did design, we did all perspective, coloring, we did models, everything by your own. Nowadays, our students have a lot of other facilities. They use a lot of softwares. So they become artists, but they cannot draw a single line, straight line. I know. They don't know how to sketch. They don't know, right? But they know how to sketch with the use of computer software. I think I have noted some of the students are not listening to their lecturers, but they are always watching whether their lecturer is telling the truth. They always go to Google, they just type and check. I have noted this, but I think that is sort of an inquisitive, right? Those days, we never challenge our teachers. We never ever challenge. Even during our vivas, we never challenge. Whatever he says, we accept. But nowadays, students challenge their teachers. Students argue.
Look at it good or bad?
So that's two sides of the pine, right? Sometimes yes, it's good. It's good. Sometimes it is bad, because this is you cannot, you are a student. I think more than you argue, I think you must absorb something from them. So there are, if you have many teachers, you know what to take and what not to take. That is your talent. You have to develop the skill.
Like you mentioned, right, that a lot of times they finish their education and they move to the academic teachers, right? At the end of the day, architecture is a field where you need to have professional practice to at least the
I would have to come on this.
It's very difficult.
you regard it.
Architectural teaching is not an easy thing. Compared to other teaching, architectural teaching is very, very difficult, right? You cannot teach 500 students like engineering. They have lecture theaters. We don't have lecture theaters in our university. We have studios. Why? We teach limited group of students always. We interact with them. That is our teaching. It's very teaching is difficult. Learning is also difficult because you must have an inherent talent in you, right? Otherwise, forget about architecture. Otherwise, you can't.
Just to add,
Yeah.
in those days, okay, where we all students, our professors or our lecturers are also practitioners.
I think that
They know what to do. But these days, some lecturers graduates and they become a lecturer.
stereotype that's been developed with his students as well, right? That this the person probably, I mean, I think that's a experience also that you have, that with someone who's practiced for some time and they teach, their way of teaching and the kind of knowledge space that they have is a bit, maybe a bit more than someone who just graduated professionally. So we have a question for you regarding that as well.
I mean, here's something argument is happening around it that I have actually comment on. And I would tell you what. Is it simple now that as in May, in about, I thought this one new batch of students have been considered to be inferior by the syllabus. This is a statement number one. So possibly our teachers would have considered us to be inferior than them. Possibly the same thing is happening here, whereupon they say, we say that, the sketching. I mean, Corbusier was not a great sketcher, but he was a great architect. So sketching is not the essential quality, but what is more important is how do you visualize it. And when we talk about the technology, so when computers came in, I came and, I was very few of them who has learned it. And I was knowing that with this as such, maybe 50% of the architects would be out of their job because they are not coping up with the technology. No, this is one very way. Now, again, same thing. Because the perspectives are rendered with such a fast speed and in whatever format you want, yes, personal touch is missing. I agreed about that. But the perspectives were never considered to be a piece of art. They are not supposed to be a piece of art. They are basically meant to be explained to the clients you are deciding. If that is happening in a proper fashion by a technology, I think it is welcome. But today, if you see, and AI, the way, I'm looking at it and trying to explore it, and I understand that AI has such a tremendous potentials that the way we are looking at a creative activity like architecture, and I'm not talking about here about the construction and building, and maybe a detailing also for that matter. Yeah. Because we know world over that they are talking about the concept designer. Yeah. These are the great architects who are acting as a concept designers. No, we can say that what do you mean by concept designers? Because they do not know, like literally somebody else is doing it. He mentioned it. He said specification. But then these are the fields which are getting diversified. During possibly our days, we were never ever knowing that there would be a concept of a multiplex happening around. Or the metro station. That was not there. The way airports are designed today, that system was not there at all. But it had come. Now the students are capable of doing it. So to my mind as such, in another 10 years time, there will be two types of the architectural practices which will be there. One I call as a boutique practice and another is a multi-speciality practice. In a boutique practice, all the scenarios which outside sir has said or Saifuddinji has said would remain. Because here is a man who values his own creation, believes in executing it right from the first point to last point, without any intervention. But let me tell you something, when we talk about the structural designing systems and the specialization here happening around, it is no more about the column placements. Not at all. It is a different type of the materials, different type of technology coming in. So the way you were saying that you have a coordination systems available, which are very, very state of art scenarios. So you design it and then there are the grids which will be coming in and then you choose, and then your structural engineer is also a part of a design, or maybe you are an so software service is one, but bigger projects would have bigger complexities, would need the multidisciplinary approaches. We cannot deny that. No, this is number one. Number two, which we have to understand is that education of architecture has to be separated from the practice of architecture. And I would tell you why. If you look at what has happened in my class of 20 or 30, your class of 20 or 30, or maybe none, it is not that all the people who have been taught in a fantastic fashion as per the definition of Vilasji are practicing architecture. They are not. Not at all. No, what is the ratio for practice? To my mind, 10%. No, you said 10%. So C is what it is. So how? And this is traditionally happening around. There is nothing wrong about the education system per se. In architecture, including US, in architecture, normally about 8 to 10% only would go to what you call as a serious architecture profession. Practice. And it is a good thing to happen. The same thing is true with the lawyers. In the law profession also, you would find out that everyone is not going to be the advocate practicing law, but it doesn't mean that the law education is demeaning. These are completely different things. That's what I was talking about. I said that we are going to have the sort of the specialists who would be created, and maybe the schools would have a responsibility to see that one who is actually a civil designer would be encouraged to follow that design. One who is capable of doing a detailing also of a design, let him get that chance. But one who is techno-savvy, who intends to do something as a specialization later on, who has already decided into his third year possibly that he would not pursue architecture, but he would like to go for planning. I should not, keep and pushing and nailing him and saying that you have to become architect, but he is not going to practice. But he has decided to be a product designer, but he has decided to be a skill learner. Or he has decided to be a developer. It's not trying to be a developer. I mean, architect becoming one who has, I'm not saying architect, architectural education who has got, if he decides to go as a developer, is not a crime. No. That's true. But one who is not really trained to the way we want it, and then he starts practicing architecture, is a path. So that is a potential of actual teacher's role is always there. I mean, I don't deny that. But, this is not a very quantifiable thing. Because I keep on looking at it saying that like, oh, okay, so is it that every point of time with the history as said the teachers have gone from everywhere? No, that is not the responsibility. There is a responsibility of a profession also to train the interns. A job of a school is to introduce to various sort of the areas, and chiseling them happens in the internship which would be happening in the architectural firms, whereupon the architectural firms also have a responsibility to hold the young generation and take along with it. Third point, very small because I know I'm into teaching for last 35 years. With a full responsibility, I can say that any coming generation is more smarter and focused than the previous generation. Because what is happening is that they are, addressing to their own demands, their own systems, ecosystems, which are much different than the systems which were present during my time.
Yeah.
Right? So now it happens that at that point of time, possibly, there used to have this guru who would, hold my hand and sit with me and tell me that. Today, it so happens in my class that I get, amused by the capabilities of my students. And coming back and saying that, sir, there's a better way of doing this. No, it is about technique. So what I bring on a table is a maturity. What the student brings on a table actually is basically his creativity and understanding about the new systems.
The knack of it.
They are capable of saving on a time. And if they do that as such, I would not consider it as a criminal activity. If the estimation is going to happen by a machine at a click of the button, whereupon I have put up my commands and the building is already put up in the 3D, if the estimate is happening around in a click of button, there is no need to calculate the quantities, because then you would be prone to the errors. So technology has to be taken for the advantage.
Yeah.
Say the air has to be taken for the advantage. We cannot. I mean, there would be a day whereupon you say that to AI you give a command. It's all about how you do it, coding and command. And I give a command that suppose in such and such design could have been done by Le Corbusier, then what it would have been. Okay? Right. And I get. Okay? When you talk about only you would get the examples, and then your job as an architect would you actually select something which is the best possible way for a client.
I think it's in our time,
And this is good.
our day we used to think about this. The architect has to have a good handwriting.
Now the question is, well, if I have to learn something new,
Yeah.
then I have to dump something out.
Oh, yes. That,
I cannot keep on, you learn this also, you learn this also. No, it doesn't happen.
I think that kind of discussion also happens within students also. Like, are we going to use this later?
They would not use it because they know it that use of this is useless. So they would not use it. I would tell them, like, you have to sketch. I say, yes, sir. You have meant way, you sketch. Yes. He goes there, clicks a photograph, use a software. You want to have a sketch.
Few years before, they used to use T square and Z square. Now they're not required. Carry to D square and
But now, to be honest, in education, I think it's still there. Like,
say, again, there is a big debate happening. But like, I would say which is one. If two would have different boxes, would it?
so, please answer.
So let me put it's not a little differently, okay? So actually I agree with all these emotioners of their statement they have put. So architect Rona, in front of you, I'm standing, I'm the architect. So I cannot, draw the proper straight line. And also I cannot, sketch. So my profession is different. I'm involved in different, discipline in the field of architecture. So nowadays, the scope of architecture is more widening. As he said, that the previous time, the scope for architects, especially in the academic scene, maybe in the academic line, and another is the service line, maybe the government service or the service in the local government, and also the private practitioner in the consulting business, right? So what I feel, as all of you know, that the architects are the creative one, yeah. Because of our creativity, the property value of the property is increased so many times, right? Because of our creativity, like in the business field, if somebody wants to develop the resort or apartment, so if the apartment and that resort or the hotel is designed by the famous architect, then the value of that property will be increased several times instead of fresh architects, isn't it? So what the businessman, they're earning more than the architects by using our creativity, isn't it? So instead of doing that, why the architect do not involve in the business?
So that doesn't mean that your architectural education has gone best. No, not that is nothing. Because of the creativity, as an architect, you have edge over others because you understand this phenomena much better because you learned it in the studio environment.
One statement back. So instead of, for fresher graduates, instead of, making rich people more richer, then why should we become the rich? So architects have become the rich. Yeah.
Effort ultimately, I said that purpose of architecture education has to be different than the purpose of practice.
Yeah.
And for practice, with those who intend to practice architecture, there has to be stringent norms. As far as the education is concerned, it should be as liberal as possible. To the extent, I believe, like in the studios, if I know that this person is going to be a developer and he has clearly shown, then I should train him for that. I mean, as an institution, that's my responsibility as a teacher, a sensible teacher. I should not force on him. I thought you want to become a developer. I would tell you how to develop a line. So, and he understands. Otherwise, he wastes his 5 years of
experience. Similarly, after practicing of 35 years in architecture, I turned into the developer.
Yeah.
So I'm a developer now.
Then
Why should we give it to the other person?
Can you find your niche eventually in the field because it's so broad, right? So
it's very broad. It is a great field of a study. There is no question of a demand decreasing. The developmental activities are increasing. The need the architects also is increasing.
yes,
Sir, this is possible. This is possible, possible because we are the creative people, So in business, we need the creativity, You put your creativity idea in the bits and you earn money.
And this is the only program which thinks 360 degrees. There was a doctor who understood that she intends to become architect. She has converted, then done at the age of 35. That's what she has done presentation. 35 years, then became architect. So these are the trapped souls who get liberated with architecture. Architecture is not a paying job. No, it is absolutely yes. There are no architects. Don't you understand, how to work? Unfortunately, this is what is happening with our youngs who are entering into the office. Are we recognizing their talent? Or is it that we are just putting our name and that their talent is there, and if somebody is not delivering, then the things would. And it's not as if architects are not earning. They are earning quite well. Many of the architects who are excellent graphic designers, they are excellent product designers. They are into marketing. They may not call themselves as architects.